Hold on. Oh, hold up. I'm gonna go. I know something is. This. I don't know. Let's go. Report, and you should be heavier. Report my ass. Rah. Rah.
Grabbing some frag rounds.
In case anyone is
What
wondering,
is this?
I'm about to
Deploying
die.
explosive rounds.
Give me that.
Clear.
Do you think Coach...
I know you could.
Hey, ready to down. Stop shocking me.
Right. Someone remove this. Yay.
We have to get going. Come on.
I need to find...
Thanks.
Go! Get out of the go!
Heads up. Hey, yo. We're a team. Come get me. Kill the tank. Help over here. Shoot the tank!
I'm gonna miss you,
Ass up!
Coach.
Get boys! This looks like information.
I'm down!
Keep shooting!
There goes. Shit.
Hey yo! I need some help! With team! Come get me!
Heads up!
I'm seriously screwed up.
Bye. Gonna miss you, Coach.
I need to find
I ain't gonna make it.
I need to find some...
In case anyone is wondering, I'm about to die.
Hot stuff coming! Hey,
Prison like Ellis? I'm not a complainer,
I put this to better use than me.
but I'm about to die. Now I'm
I don't know, but meanwhile,
Sometimes you hear
watching
stories
this one.
from like, soldiers in the United States Army, maybe some veterans
Yeah.
talking about how one unit and they had,
obvious.
leadership that really took care of them, that really looked after soldiers. And then you hear other stories where soldiers are talking about, oh, this unit was
Does anyone know where the base is located? We went to base to
toxic. Their leadership was toxic. They had horrible leadership. And you may be wondering, like, what are some examples? What are some examples of this unit being toxic compared to this unit having great leadership? And that's what I want to provide in this video. And that starts right now. The Army is not guaranteed to be a great experience. It's going to definitely vary based on the units, the MOS that you do, the people that you come in contact with, whether or not you're going to have like a good time in the United States Army or have a bad time in the United States Army. You can't predict really what you're going to get. That is really going to depend on a lot of factors: the leadership, your location, the environment, what's going on, all sorts of things. The type of leadership is definitely something that can make or break like a good duty station, right? It can be very helpful to be stationed at this place if you have great leadership compared to being stationed maybe at the greatest place on earth, but the leadership is toxic and it just ruins everything. And in that case, I want to be able to give you some examples of both, some good leadership as well as some bad leadership. These are some examples that maybe I've experienced, but don't think that just because an NCO or the leadership has one of these traits, it makes them toxic or great, because it usually takes like a combination of several of these traits for it to be either good leadership or toxic leadership or bad leadership. So these are some things that I experienced, my opinions as far as what I feel like are some characteristics of some good leadership that I had, as well as some bad or toxic leadership that I had that I experienced as well. Your opinion could be very different than mine, and if you have a specific type of opinion as far as what makes good leadership and what makes bad leadership, I want to hear about that down in the comment section down below. So comment down below, but nonetheless, let's get into some things. Let's start off with an experience that I had of, a good trait of some good leadership. There are times in the United States Army where you're sitting around doing nothing. You may hear like the term, hurry up and wait, or, a lot of other kind of terminology where there's just times sometimes in the Army where there isn't a whole lot going on and they just got you sitting around holding up a wall, sitting around in the motor pool, sitting around at the office area, whatever, not really doing anything constructive, and they'll try to find some crap for you to do or whatever. Or maybe you have a good experience like I've had sometimes where they just tell you, hey, go get lost for a little bit, but have your phone ready so if we need you, we can get a hold of you. I've had some experiences where, we've had leadership tell us, hey, those of you that live in the barracks, go ahead and take off to your barracks room, but don't start drinking or anything crazy. Don't make a lot of noise to let people know that you're in the barracks. Just hang out, relax. And if we call you because we need somebody to get down to the motor pool to go do something, you need to have your phone ready so we can get a hold of you. For those that maybe live off post, they usually tell them, hey, don't go too far. Maybe hang out with one of the soldiers in the barracks, hang out somewhere in the nearby area, maybe go to the PX for a little while. That way, if we need you, we can call you. And if we don't need you, we'll give you a call and tell you to go ahead and head home. That's always pretty nice, right? It sucks having your time wasted, regardless, of how much or how little you work in the United States Army or even in the military, you're gonna get paid the same. So it really doesn't matter too much, but it does suck having your time wasted. So if you're just sitting around in the motor pool doing nothing because there's nothing to do, but they don't wanna let you go home either, it sucks. So it's nice when you have that leadership that is cool like that, where they're like, hey, we ain't got nothing going on, but who knows? First sergeant could come down in an hour or so saying, hey, we need to get this done, and I don't want you to be in too far away, and we might have to get that, mission accomplished that needs us to get accomplished. I need to be able to call you if that ends up being the case. So stay within range so I can call you, you can get to that location, but there's no sense in you wasting your time sitting around here. Go hang out, go do something, go play some video games, go watch a movie, whatever, but be available. So I think that's a good characteristic, right? Not wasting a soldier's time. It's very helpful. It's very motivating to the soldier to not feel like their time is wasted. Moving to something I feel like is a kind of a toxic kind of characteristic is your leadership not being around, right? If your leadership's not around, they're not there to kind of guide you, to help let you know what needs to get done so that way we can get out of here on time. And you might have times where, maybe you're standing around doing nothing when you could be doing something, but your leadership isn't around to tell you what needs to get done. Then all of a sudden, before you know it, it's getting close to going home time, and all of a sudden here comes the leadership showing up telling you this needs to get done, this needs to get done, this needs to get done. And now you can't go home on time because you got a bunch of stuff that needs to get done, where if they would have been there the entire time to let us know this stuff needs to get done, we could have got out of here in a decent time. So that's really frustrating sometimes when your leadership's not around when they should be to help kind of direct you in the right direction. An example of that I've talked about this in another video where I was talking about like the worst platoon sergeant I had, and that was an example in the National Training Center. We were in the motor pool at our little fob area that we had kind of established in the National Training Center. We're working in the motor pool, we're getting things done. There's things like we need the platoon sergeant's signature for like these dispatches or other sorts of things. We need a little bit of guidance as far as, you know, what they want us to do with certain vehicles or certain other kind of aspects. Platoon sergeant's nowhere to be found. And the NCO in this case, that platoon sergeant, ended up being inside the DFAC, sitting there just chilling in the AC, reading a book, you know, drinking some coffee or whatever, or they were back in the tent area taking a nap, and we had to go bug them in their little comfort area they were doing when they should have been out there with us to get these things done. So it just resulted in this big pain in the ass where it's like, hey, go find the platoon sergeant. They got to sign off on this. Or, hey, go find the platoon sergeant. We need to find out what they want us to do with this type of thing. And then, you know, the soldier comes back. It's like, oh, platoon sergeant is actually over in the tent asleep right now. Should I wake that platoon sergeant up? What do you want me to do, right? So ends up being horrible. And I think that's a trait of a toxic leadership when they're not there for the soldiers to help guide them, to help make sure that things are getting accomplished. Now, before we get into a few more, this video is brought to you by Ridge, and right now you can actually save 10% simply by using the promo code Chaos Army and the link down in the description box down below. Their RFID blocking wallets can hold up to 12 cards, plus there's also room on the back of their wallets with either a money clip or your choice of a band on the back. They also have some really cool new items, such as their stylish Stonewash titanium wallet that I actually have right here that gives that cool kind of rugged, maybe a little bit of the beat up kind of look to it. I really dig this one. This is pretty cool. Or you have this brown leather one that's both leather on the back and the front, and even has this money band right here for you to attach your money back inside of here, and the band itself right here with the Ridge logo is also leather as well. I think this one's pretty cool. It's kind of a little bit different compared to like the metal ones you traditionally see with some of the Ridge wallets. This cool leather one I think is actually pretty stylish, and some of you out there that maybe are more fans of like a leather wallet may want to switch to a leather Ridge wallet. So make sure you visit ridge.com/chaosarmy so you can ditch that old school bulky wallet and maybe get something way cooler and much more stylish, such as these guys. The people over at Ridge are so confident that you will like your wallet that they will actually allow you to test drive it for 99 days. And if in that time frame you are not happy with your decision to move to a Ridge wallet, you can send it back and get a full refund.
Okay.
So visit that link down in the description box down below and check out their more than 30 different styles so you can find the one that's best for you. Check out that link, use the promo code, save 10%. Let's get back into things. A characteristic of some good leadership is an experience that I had in Iraq where me and several other NCOs would do these mock boards. They're basically practice promotion boards, and we would do that for all of the specialists that were with us on that deployment. So any of the specialists that were interested in trying to better themselves, preparing themselves for the promotion board, because if you're not familiar, if you want to get promoted to the next rank from specialist to sergeant, you have to go in front of a board, answer a bunch of questions, and depending on how good you do, they either recommend you or don't recommend you to start the process to advance to the next rank. So we would offer these E4s, these specialists, the opportunity to be able to do these mock boards, these practice boards on Friday nights where we would have it over at the CP area. So if you wanted to participate in that, try to better yourself, you can come in and we would basically treat you as if you were on the board to try to get promoted from specialist to sergeant. We even had our first sergeant involved with it, so it was like several NCOs plus our first sergeant as well, because the first sergeant is even somebody that's actually on usually the promotion board, so that individual has some first-hand knowledge, so that was also very helpful. But with the key thing that we would do for these specialists to help prepare them is we were pretty tough on them, and that was for a good reason. The idea was to make the practice board way harder than what the real promotion board was going to be like. So that way, if they could do a good job in this practice board, they should have no problem doing well at the actual board. Almost kind of similar in a way to how like fighters train, right? Usually during sparring or during those training sessions, they try to wear them out and try to emulate a really tough, fight, right? So that way when they get into the actual fight, maybe it's a little bit easier than what they prepared for. And that's kind of the intention. We're intentionally pretty rough on these soldiers, trying to, really kind of confuse them, trying to give them some tough questions, maybe try to get them a little bit to fumble a little bit with their words or whatever by just doing off the wall kinds of things. That way it was a little bit difficult. And then when they did eventually go to the actual promotion board, they would be like, hey, that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Those practice boards were harder than the real one was. And that was kind of the intent. So I feel like that was some good leadership. You know, we were helping to prepare these soldiers by taking some time. This could have been our free time, the very little free time that we would have in Iraq. We could have been using that little bit of free time to watch movies, to hang out in our rooms, but we chose to kind of use a few hours, you know, on Friday evenings to basically help out these specialists, help out these soldiers to prepare them for the board. And I feel like that's a good trait that some NCOs could do to be able to, you know, help soldiers out and kind of show good leadership, is to take away some of their personal time to help those soldiers, right? I could have been doing something else, but I chose to spend some of my personal time helping these soldiers out. Now let's move into a toxic trait, right? A toxic trait that I have experienced is favoritism. Sometimes you have some NCOs that will have other soldiers that maybe they're showing some favoritism towards, and the soldiers that are not showing that favoritism for kind of end up kind of having to pick up the slack and kind of suffer from that. Sometimes you have a situation where, you know, an NCO, maybe it's a squad leader, a platoon sergeant, whatever, has some other younger soldiers they're buddy-buddy with, kind of a thing, and they treat those soldiers differently than they treat the other soldiers, and that kind of sucks. That kind of causes a little bit of kind of toxic leadership, because you're like, why on earth do I have to do all this stuff? These other people that this NCO is friends with, buddy-buddy with, doesn't have to do any of this stuff. I'll give you an example of that. I had a section sergeant when I was in NTC. I was probably an E3, E4 type of thing, and I had a few other soldiers that were the same rank as me. We were all in the same section, and we had to dig a fighting position. I ended up getting stuck digging, I think, majority, maybe if not all of that fighting position, because these other two soldiers were a little bit more buddy-buddy with our section sergeant, and they were all sitting there just hanging out, bullshitting with the section sergeant, talking up, you know, having a conversation, everything like that. And so they weren't helping. And the section sergeant wasn't doing anything about like, hey guys, go help out specialist so-and-so, go help out PFC, whatever, right? No, he was just focused on them having a good conversation, having a good time. Meanwhile, my ass is in that foxhole, sweating my ass off, trying to dig this fighting position with no help. There's a lot of other kind of scenarios that I've seen too, where you have like NCOs that have certain soldiers they're more buddy-buddy with, and they'll just be sitting around, standing around talking, while other soldiers are busting their ass trying to get things done, and that shows favoritism, and sometimes that sucks, right? To the soldiers that they're buddies with, they might see it as good leadership. They're like, cool, you know, this guy's awesome, right? He doesn't make me do all this horrible work. He just lets me chill out with him or whatever, or her or whatever, while these other soldiers, you know, have to do all the work. But to the other soldiers that have to do all the work, they see it on the opposite side of the kind of spectrum. But favoritism does definitely suck. Hopefully you get some kind of better balance, but when you have the scales tipped a little bit differently, where certain soldiers are getting treated much better than other soldiers, and they're the ones getting the crap all the time, then it definitely kind of, to that person, is going to look like favoritism, and it's going to suck. On the opposite side of that, having good leadership, someone that's being friendly with you, but you got to have it balanced, right? Again, if you are tipping the scales too much and you're being too friendly with these soldiers and not very friendly to these other soldiers, and they're doing all the work and these other ones are your buddies, so they're getting out of the work, then it kind of changes the perspective. But if you keep things even, and maybe you're good friends, you know, to a certain point, because you don't want to run into the realm of what's called fraternization, right? You don't want to be fraternizing with soldiers, but to a point, you're pretty cool with these soldiers, you've kind of created some kind of relationship with them, then that does kind of fall into the category of good leadership, I feel like. I've had some NCOs like that, where they didn't really discriminate, right? They weren't kind of in that kind of category of that other NCO that I was talking about. They pretty much treated several soldiers, you know, because they weren't like screw-ups type of thing, pretty fairly, pretty nicely. They would, you know, have fun conversation with them type of thing. And you kind of feel differently about those NCOs compared to the ones that were mean to you. The ones that were treating you like garbage, like you're just some low-life scum, you're just some private whatever kind of a thing, you don't feel that same bond as the other NCOs that maybe are treating you more as, you know, kind of not necessarily an equal, you know, because they shouldn't be really necessarily treating you like an equal, but not like a scumbag either. They're treating you a little bit more respectfully, right? They're having some fun conversations with you. They're, you know, maybe helping you out a little bit with the work, right? But at the same time, you know, when you build that relationship, that bond with those leadership, you kind of feel a little bit more obligated to not let them down, and you end up working harder because you're like, man, this NCO is pretty cool. I don't want to let him or her down, so I'm going to bust my ass to get this done. That way they don't look down on me and they don't think that I'm a screw up, and I don't want to disappoint them. I've had some NCOs like that where, you know, they were really cool with me and everything like that, and I wanted to make sure to work really hard because I kind of felt, you know, a connection with that NCO, and I was like, I don't want to let this person down, so I need to make sure I'm putting forth a lot of effort so that I don't have them yelling at me and I feel like I let them down. There was specifically an NCO I had in Korea that was probably maybe even the best squad leader I ever had, and I definitely had that kind of bond with that NCO, where this NCO was really cool. You know, he would bullshit with you, he'd joke around with you, he was pretty serious with work and everything too, but kind of with the combination of everything, you really had that kind of mentality of like, hey, I don't want to let this person down. They're pretty cool. I don't want them to look down on me and think that I'm a screw up. So I got to make sure to do this right. One last one, which is a toxic trait. I'll give you an example of a sergeant major that I had while stationed in Iraq. This was my first time being deployed to Iraq, and if any of you were in the 3rd ACR during the same time frame as I was, which was what, 2006, 2007, or 2005 to 2006, I think it's somewhere around there, you may remember this sergeant major from 3rd ACR. I won't mention the name, but possibly if you were in the 3rd ACR during that time, you probably know who I'm talking about. Some of the things that this sergeant major did was just unnecessary, right? We're in a combat zone, it's stressful enough, and this individual was just adding even more stress than should have been even necessary. Some examples of that, right? You would come off a mission, and maybe one of the key things you want to do, you get done off a mission, you want to call family. You want to call home and see how your family's doing. Call your mom, call your dad, call your wife, call your husband, whatever. You want to go utilize the phone after mission. Well, if you came off of mission and went to the phone center and your weapon was all dusty and dirty and he came through, he would chew you out even while you're on the phone with your parents or whoever you're on the phone with. This individual did this several times where we go and be like checking out the phone center and looking at seeing who, who's got their weapons in there with them, which you kept your weapons with you all the time, but mainly looking to see, who's got some dusty weapons, who's got some weapons that got a little bit of sand on their weapons. And if you had sand on your weapons, you were dusty, he would start yelling at you to tell you to get off the damn phone, go clean your weapon. Cleaning your weapon is important, right? It keeps it from getting jammed and everything. I'm not saying don't clean your weapon, but there's a time and a place, right? You're getting off mission, you want to call your family before they go to bed because of the time difference and everything, before you go back to the motor pool or go back to, your area to go get some sleep or whatever. Maybe you want to try to get that phone call in and you just got off a mission. Not a big deal if you clean your weapon after you go and get off the phone or whatever to make sure it's, good and serviceable, but nonetheless, he didn't care. He would also do the same thing with like the chow hall. We would have individuals that maybe weren't actually stationed at that spot, at that fob or whatever. They were at one of these remote cops, these remote outposts or whatever. They would be doing missions over to the main post or the main fob that we were at just to do a little mission, and they would want to catch maybe some lunch, some dinner, some breakfast or whatever while on mission. Well, if they were kind of dusty, also had dirty weapons or whatever, he would get on them and wouldn't let them go into the chow hall. We're in the middle of a desert. You're gonna get dusty, your weapon's gonna get dusty, you're gonna get dusty, but nonetheless, if you were dusty, your weapon was dusty, he would yell at them and not let them into the chow hall. He would do that with like hair too. I remember a really funny one too of this sergeant major yelling at some special forces individuals, telling them that they needed to get a haircut. They pretty much just blew him off, and even their sergeant major at the special forces group told that sergeant major to go F off basically. But I do remember hearing the story of, some people that I knew that were in that chow hall when that sergeant major was yelling at these special forces guys, and those special forces guys did not give a shit. But nonetheless, he was pretty picky about things that maybe you should be picky about in garrison when you're not deployed. You shouldn't be getting that picky about people coming straight off of mission to get some food before the chow hall closes, trying to go call a loved one before they go to bed or whatever, and your weapon is dirty. That's probably not the time and place to be doing that kind of thing, especially while a soldier is like on the phone with their family, and then that family member can hear that sergeant major yelling at their loved one. That sucks. So that was probably like the worst sergeant major I've ever had, and if you've ever been in 30 CR, you probably know who I'm talking about. For my veteran viewers out there, I want to see some comments from you guys down in the comment section down below as far as what do you feel were some characteristics that you experienced of good leadership as well as bad leadership. Try to give me an example of maybe both, maybe one of each or something like that. So leave me some comments down below. Even if you were not in the military, have never been in the military, I still need your help. I need you to feed the YouTube algorithm. I want you to ask maybe some questions about the Army or the military down in the comment section down below, and maybe somebody from our awesome community can help you out, answer your question. Maybe I can try to answer your question if I know the answer to that. And then if you don't have maybe a question you want to know about the military, I want to hear some weird random fact. Maybe you got some random fact about the military, maybe something about movies, maybe something about cars or whatever. I want to hear some random knowledge, some random fact that you want to share with us down in that comment section down below. An example is that, did you know that the MRE instructions for the heater specifically says word for word to place it on a rock or something? That vague wording actually comes from the MRE engineers when they were designing the MRE. They were trying to come up with the instructions and everything. They were trying to get some feedback from some of the other individuals. And one of them, their lead individual or one of their individuals was like, I don't know, a rock or something when they were asking, what to put on the instructions for what to lean it up against. They kind of thought it was funny, and they were like, let's just put that word for word on the instructions. It kind of caught on. It was just meant to be a joke, but it kind of caught on, and they were like, that's great, let's just keep it on there. And it stayed on there ever since, and that was back in the 90s. Now, don't go anywhere just yet, because there's this video right here that you should definitely check out. YouTube says it's a good recommendation for your viewing experience. Check out my links down in the description box for social media and everything else. Hit that thumbs up. Thanks for watching. I'm Christopher Chaos, and I'll see you next time.
We got a charger.
Yeah, I'm thinking about adding new add-on as on. Nice. Let's see what's going on. Nice. Come on. Ah. Wait, I want to improve something. I like this guy. I think this. Oh, and there's so many animation. Okay. And I love the new animation, it's fun. German chunk. I mean, this Alex, see? I'm gonna check. No? Yeah, they make my bill feel bad. Build the division. Bill.
Grab an incendiary ammo.
Shotgun will put the hurt on them zombies. Throw the Molotov. Pipe bomb out. Use over there. I'm down.
Deploying incendiary ammo.
Come on, on your feet!
Thanks.
Oh, damn, my bed! Get up! Now!
Don't stop shooting!
I ain't dead yet.
Help!
Well,
Help! Help!
Gotta go then.
Come on now. Ain't got no time for this. Get up.
Roger! I'm down!
Don't mean to be no bother, guys, but I need some help over here.
You say alright. Should I update this one? I wonder. Like I have the option to update this. Say, I don't know. Like I don't know about this. I don't know about those. Like, keep getting